In this video, we'll show you how to replace the Upstream O2 sensor on your Ford Edge. This is located on the back side of the engine and a part of the exhaust system. Let's get started. To remove the engine cover, you can simply pop it up. It's good to do the front first and then the back. We can just set that off to the side. Using a 7mm or a flathead screwdriver, we can go ahead and loosen up the hose clamp at the beginning of the intake. Get that loose, start to wiggle it off. On the driver's side of the airbox, we have two tabs. We can simply pop those out. We can remove the upper portion of the box. Grab onto the edge of the filter and go ahead and remove that. Quick inspection of that before we set it off to the side. And two more 7mm bolts up here at the top of the inlet. There's a few grommets on the bottom of the box. Pop those out. We can pull the box out. We have an 8mm holding in our tie down here. Go ahead and remove the bracket. In order to slide our battery forward, we need to remove this ground strap. And normally, this ground strap would be connected to a stud off the strut tower here. Looks like that broke, so ours is right here. Normally, this would be an 11mm. Ours is a 13. Just slide that off. Then we can pick up on the battery. You're going to be careful as you lift it over the bit of the wiring harness in the front. Looking towards the back side of the battery, we can go ahead and remove the 10mm holding the negative cable on. You just need to loosen that up. Can shimmy the cable back and forth until the terminal comes off the battery and set it off to the side. We can move the positive terminal boot out of the way. We have another 10mm here to remove the positive terminal. And just loosen that up. We can shimmy the positive terminal off. Depending on the type of battery in your vehicle, you may have a handle on top. If not, you can certainly grab it from the underside. I have a couple handles up top. We're just going to slide this forward and remove it from the vehicle. Moving inward on the intake, we can loosen up the second hose clamp. We can remove this stud using a 13mm. There's a small rubber hose connected to the intake. And just pull that off. Now we can take our intake tube, pop it off the inner portion, and now we can kind of just fold this forward and out of the way. Looking down into the engine bay on the driver's side, right behind the engine, we find the exhaust. On top of that is our O2 sensor. I'm going to use a 22mm O2 sensor socket. You can use the split in the socket to go over the wire. And I'll be using an extension to get down to the socket. Go ahead and break that free. We have a small tab on top of the connector facing towards the back of the car. And simply press in on the tab. Pull the connector downwards. Now I'm going to take the connector and twist it counterclockwise a few times. Then I can start spinning the O2 sensor out, and that won't twist the wire. And we can remove the O2 sensor. Same as removing, you want to twist the sensor's connector, and that'll help it so that the wire doesn't get twisted as you thread the sensor in. We can get our socket and our extensions on. We can snug that down. We can torque this to 35 foot-pounds. And we can plug the electrical connector back in. Gotta make sure it locks in and won't pull back out. And go ahead and get our intake piece back under the vacuum line. Get the vacuum line on. We'll get the studs started in. We'll snug that down. Whenever you disconnect a battery terminal, you want to make sure you inspect it for any damage or corrosion. If there is any corrosion or anything, you want to go ahead and clean that up. I have a battery terminal brush here. We'll do that to both of the terminals. We'll go ahead and get the battery onto its tray. Make sure that your terminals aren't going to get trapped in the back of the battery there. Start to slide it in. Before installing our terminals, it's good to clean up the terminals of the battery. You can certainly use a wire brush for this. I have a battery terminal cleaner. We'll do the same to the other terminal as well. As we start to get the battery in, get the positive terminal on. Make sure it's set all the way down. It's also good to have the terminal in the same orientation when you took it off. We'll go ahead and snug that down. Doesn't need to be too tight, just needs to not turn. We'll get the cover back on the positive terminal. Next we can get the negative terminal on. We can snug that down. Doesn't need to be too tight. Just enough that the terminal doesn't move. Now we can just slide the battery back into place. Again, being cautious of the bit of wiring harness in front of the battery. We can get this negative terminal back over onto its stud. We can go ahead and snug this down. We can get our battery tie-down bracket back in place. We can tighten down the battery hold down and make sure that the battery isn't going to move. We have 2 grommets down here in the engine bay in front of the battery. Go ahead and line up the studs on the bottom of the airbox with those. Next, we can get our bolts back into our intake duct. We'll snug each of those down. Get the air filter back in. We'll get the upper portion of the intake box in. We'll get this part into the boot. You'll need to angle the upper portion of the box. Slide the tabs in. Then we can close down the clips. We can get the electrical connector plugged back in. Make sure that bottoms out and is locked in. We can tighten down each of the hose clamps. Line up the grommets and press down on the engine cover. You'll need to take the vehicle for a road test in order for the PCM to relearn its strategy values. While you're doing this, some abnormal symptoms may occur. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.